Well, I know you guys have missed me. It has been a long time, but hey, with podcasts, you just listen to it when it comes on, and I'm out here for you. But we have a special um, show tonight because it's a if anyone that follows baseball or basketball, hockey, sometimes you'll have a home game at your stadium, then you play the same team the next night in their stadium. Crazy travel, and they call it a home and home series. So we're gonna do that tonight in the podcasting world. And how we're gonna do that is I actually have a guest that has a podcast, good friend of mine, and his name is Jelani Millard, and he has a podcast out there called Pay Me in Plane Tickets. So since I couldn't have any tickets to pay him, I said, hey, you're just going to have to be on the show, and we're going to talk tonight, yes. And for his guests that will probably listen, my name is Keith Dent, and the name of my podcast is Black Men Speak, a podcast that highlights ordinary Black men doing extraordinary things, and he is no different. So I'm going to bring him up. We have Jelani Millard, fellow Hoya, and it's great to see you. So you like this home and home concept?
Yes, I love it, man. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. Yes, I'm Jelani of Pay Me and Plane Tickets podcast. I am also a Hoya Fellow, 2016. Let's go.
Yeah.
And I don't have any plane tickets to pay anybody else either. So I think we're both in the same boat safely.
I know that's
Thanks for having me
I
on.
thought that's an interesting title. How did you come up? How'd you come up with that title, by the way?
Yeah, so it started with the inception of I really always wanted to be a hotelier. So it started with that about 3 years ago, and learning about the hotel business and also investing in real estate and in sort of hotel properties. I learned that the lead time is a bit extended. So I thought of something. I was thinking, hey, what can I do in the meantime for this 3 years? And I thought about a podcast. And one thing I kept noticing in my social sphere, as everybody else, was that a lot of people were traveling, and they were traveling relatively easy. And I just sort of thought, hey, how are they doing this without any real, lead time or build up or maybe saving up everything? As I was playing it safely, as the coming from the finance background. And I was looking at my feed again and just noticing, I said, man, these individuals, I feel like they're just getting paid in plane tickets and they're just everywhere at any particular time and moment. And so I wanted to, I would say 90% of it was intrigue and 10% was jealousy of like, how are they doing this? So I decided to, poke them a little bit and figure out how are they going about their life, traveling the world, staying at beautiful resorts or Airbnb properties, locations, and learning different cultures and societies. And I wanted to just know, how are they doing it? How are they actually traversing this world freely, almost without any struggle? And so I thought about the best form to find the answers was through a podcast, and that's how the Pay Me and Plane Tickets podcast actually was conceived. And we've been operating for roughly 24 months, and we're ready for the next 12.
Well, that's perfect because being of a certain generation, that's always been also a matter of jealousy, slice anger on my side. How are how are folks actually traveling without going into these elaborate places without going into any serious debt, or do they
Yeah.
have a credit card that they take out for travel and then they pay it off at the end of the year and then just re-up again? Because I'm glad we're connecting today because there's I'm going to be a empty nester soon, and that's definitely on the bucket list. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm with
I
you.
mean, I got 4 years, I guess, to save up pennies, because of course college
Right.
is the priority, but after that, after that,
It's gone.
it was done. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, and that was it. That was exactly it. I wondered, yeah, out of curiosity, how are they doing this? And a lot of it I've discovered through this journey. It is a bit of a true hustle. It's a real hustle. It's not as picturesque as it seems on the social feeds or in the front facing as it is in the back end. I mean, one thing about the hospitality industry, it runs on very thin margins, which means the marketing budgets are very tight. So a lot of these individuals are leveraging, I would say, um, their social media engagement to actually be able to stay at these properties and take these flights and afford these excursions through their engagement. And they're working in an industry where it's very competitive, and again, it's just very tight margins. There's very little bit to spend, and so it's a hustle. It really is a hustle. Like, I mean, we're talking from the individuals who have 2,000 followers to the ones who have 2 million. They're competing against each other. It's very competitive.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's pretty wild. That's pretty wild. So a hotelier. So it's that similar to oh, what's the name of that movie that's on HBO? I can't think of it.
See. Let me see if I can think of one.
It's about the Indian hotel. Dang, I wish I could remember it.
Oh man. Grand Budapest.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
yes, yes, yes. Grand Budapest Hotel. I would say, that's one of my favorite. That's like one of my favorite movies.
Okay, I
I
figured
would
as
say
much.
it's not as quirky as That Life, but I
Okay.
think I think it plays very well, and it presents the travel industry in a very fun, light way, funny way. So shout out to Wes Anderson, and yeah, I'll give him that. But the hotelier life is actually a very slow, boring life. It's not exciting. I mean, you're reading through documents. You're having to, if you're, especially in me being international, if you're investing international, it's very much like you're dealing with bureaucracy. You're dealing with like a different set of like land rules and leasing rules and
Mm-hmm.
building rules and things of that nature. So it's not as glamorous in that world or in that space. It's very much a patient game. I mean, you have a few initiatives, you get some of those done, and then you wait for responses back and wait for either responses back or progress back. And if not
Mm-hmm.
progress, then either improvements back. So it's the name, I think, is a very flashy name, but I do think that the reality is less grand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that. That and I think I would assume when you're you're more thinking of overseas and not domestic.
Well, yeah. Well, that's for me. That's me
Mm-hmm.
personally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 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 yeah. For you.
Yeah. Most, I mean, I do know individuals who invest in, domestic hotel properties, and that's also commendable too. Um, I focused on Ghana, so that was our first initial project. Was Ghana out there at the Suta Beach Box out there in Kokobite Beach, and reason being is I want to improve Africa. I want to shine a light into Africa, and I want to shine a light into Western Africa. For I would say two reasons.
Okay.
It's not as um, glamorized as other destinations. I would consider Ghana as it's like a Caribbean island of sorts. If you want to compare it to anything, it's very hot weather, very comfortable. I mean, everybody's welcoming and warm. It's definitely a place you have to get used to, but it's a comfortable place to get used to. Then the other reason was because of surfing. So there's a lot of there's some good waves out there in Kokobite Beach. So that was one of the reasons why I chose Ghana. But the most but to that point, investing internationally is a little bit is a lot longer and a lot. You have to be a lot more patient with it um, than presumably domestically.
Mm.
Yeah.
Surfing. So wow. So you're a surfer?
Yeah, I do surf. I do surf. I'm a beginner intermediate, but I'm not like I can't say I'm not gonna be surfing Nazare, which is like the 100-foot
Uh,
waves if you see it on HBO or on your plane. I'm not doing that stuff. But yeah,
so what did you think? And I know this is way off topic. What did you think of the guy? Did you see the picture of the guy
yeah.
who jumped off the board at the Olympics or was
And
off,
then
and
the
then he
one,
flashed the one?
yes, that's Gabriel Medina. Yep, that's Gabriel Medina. He's one of the world renowned surfers. He's of a upper echelon of surfer I will never be, and I ain't trying to be, but he's of that level. But the picture going global, becoming like I think it's I believe I recently read. I think it's one of the most viewed pictures of the past Olympics. Uh, I correct me if I'm wrong, but anyways, surfing as an Olympic sport is relatively new. It's actually I think it's only been in the Olympics twice. So
Oh, really?
2020, yeah, 2020 in Tokyo, and then 2024 in Paris. Well, actually in Chopu down in Tahiti, and so that picture kind of giving a little bit of notoriety, giving a little bit of like attention is positive for the sport of surfing. And I can only assume that the surfing world has its own it's pretty fractured in its own way. There's many different thoughts and ideologies of where surfing should go and blah blah blah. But that picture being in that like statement picture kind of
Mm-hmm.
on the grand stage of the Paris 2024 Olympics, I think presumably, assumingly, is I think something positive for the sport and bringing light to it in a positive way. Hopefully, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
what is funny about Olympic surfing is that it's like, come on, score. How are you scoring anything? Because they're going back and forth, a little little twists and turns on on the board, and then they're done. And you're like, oh, that's a
Right.
10 out of 10. And I'm like, wait, what? What did you do? What did he do? He didn't do much of anything.
Yeah, no, you
I mean, you
know,
know,
yeah, it's one of those sports. It's like, yeah, it follows like the judging rules, and that's even new for me because I come from swimming, where like the time rules, the time is your leader, but like in surfing, it's like the judges sort of like are the end all be all, equivalent to like a gymnastics, where like even to like me, like the untrained eye, you're like, okay, what did this person do that was so different from the person competing against them? It doesn't really seem like there's much of a difference, but like to the judges, there's like a bevy of just like variances between both parties and like what's happening here. And so what I've learned is that a lot of it comes down to like three things. It's like the wave size and power, then the technicality of whatever maneuver the surfer's doing. So whether they're like spitting out a lot of waves or like the turns and then such and such. And then the third thing is like the tricks. So like I
okay,
guess the flash of it all, like the airs and sort of the
right.
flowiness of their particular the way that they actually served. That's like to my understanding, and again, I could be corrected. But yeah, it is like, and I also would add to Olympic surfing, it's a bit of a bore because you're sitting there watching a lot of waves go by because
Mm.
to the surfers, they have to find the perfect wave. Like they only get but so many chances in like, I believe 30 minutes or so. So, it's a bit of like wading it through. So if you're a spectator and you're just like,
Yeah.
choosing to watch surfing just for the sake that it's on, or at least available during the Olympics, I think, it can be a bit of a bore in my opinion.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and so yeah, and I guess that's why that picture, caught fire because it's like, wait, what?
Yeah, so I think the way that picture worked was I think he just exited a wave. He's like flying in the air off his board, and then he believes the wave he just rode was like spectacular. Like he deserves all tens across the board from the judges, and he throws out number one because if he gets the all tens, he actually wins his round and excels to the next
Right.
one. So that's
But
kind
when
of
you
like
look at it live, though, it doesn't. So whoever took the picture, the angle was like just perfect because I
oh
think
yeah.
you show it live and it doesn't look the same.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Shout out to the photographer. I'm not too sure who it
Yeah.
is, but I hope he what do you call it? Like licensed it, like licensed it,
Oh, of
licensed
course,
it
of
well.
course. I mean, he need to make an EFT out of that.
Yeah, I hope he definitely definitely got that protected because you only get like those moments only come once in a lifetime where you get like the Olympic photo of a generation, I guess.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, completely. So I think it was great for the sport of surfing, and I think for Chopu out there in Tahiti, I think it was great for them in terms of you know shining a light to that country and to that island per se, and hopefully people travel there. And I know they're really big on respectful of the land and the culture, so maybe there's also that sort of element that's being projected too through the Olympics as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, so let's talk about, I guess, podcasting just
Yeah.
in general because it's I don't know about you because I mean, are there a lot of travel podcasts out there?
Yes, that's a good question. So there are, so travel's kind of like, it's a bit of a broad word. I would say hospitality. There's travel podcasts where you're talking to
Mhm.
like travelers and like their particular travels. Like I believe there's Women Who Travel. Like there's a Women Who Travel podcast, which is like highlighting like women who went out and explored the
Right,
world
right.
and doing X, Y, and Z. Then
Well,
you have like
do you consider yourself travel or hospitality?
I would consider the Pay Me and Plane Tickets podcast more of a hospitality,
Okay.
and and it crosses into travel because we interview hospitality leaders, we interview travelers who also are hospitality leaders,
Oh, okay.
and then like on the other side of the spectrum, we do interview like travelers in general. So
Got you.
um, I guess it could be in both, but like it is a travel podcast, and I'm cool with that. I'm fine with it. But yeah, there's like hospitality, there's like the strictly travel, and then I think also you can have the you know food and sort of cuisine talks as well because restaurant falls into hospitality in a way, and so you have like you have podcasts that touch on that talk to chefs and
Oh,
talk to
right. Yeah. Uh-huh.
authors who talk about food and things of that nature. And then you also like the photography side of podcasts where like, they're talking to different photographers who are nature photographers or adventure photographers, things of that nature. So like travel kind of falls into everything. But being in this podcast space, and I'd also even levy it to you. It's levy this question to you is it's it's a very wide ranging reach. Like even if you at first one at conception you say, "Hey, we are this particular podcast," you find out like as you're working the podcast, you end up touching a lot of different areas that may not even. I mean, it may still like somehow rope back to your original sort of topic, but like it falls into many different categories, and it's tough to place yourself in or bucket yourself into one spot. And
Mm.
I would only believe you have the same uh you fall into the same sort of like not necessarily an issue, but like the same sort of like
Yeah.
situation.
Well, I kind of got into it by, I wouldn't say by accident. It was there used to be, and I wish I could remember the name. There used to be a there was a radio where you could do a radio show.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how I got started. I was doing a
Oh,
relationship show on the radio, and I forget, but it was not like static radio. It was like internet radio. So
okay,
you
yeah,
never really knew who was listening. You would put it out there, and you may get a few people, and because you wouldn't know until the end who listened to it.
okay,
And
gotcha.
oh yes, Blog Talk Radio was the name of it.
Okay,
Blog Talk Radio. So I would do that, and then you're like, oh wait, I had a few people that listen. Like podcasting really hadn't gotten off the ground yet, and so then I morphed to a another show that was like live streaming. So it was another relationship show. Another a friend of mine, we did it. And it was called She Said He Said. I think that was the name of it.
okay,
Um, and so we had, we instead of he said she said, we just flipped it, and we would talk about relationship issues. I would just pull relationship issues online because, of course, I was writing as well as a relationship coach. But then that got stagnant after a while. Well, because it's really the core. It's really the core issues with communication being the top thing,
gotcha.
and then the ancillary, all the other issues that flow from it, is always an issue. So then it was like, okay, how many times can we keep talking about the same thing? And so then I kind of got tired of it, and then felt that there was a need to elevate Black men's voices,
Okay.
and so that's why I created it. But now, I guess in the way the industry, and I wouldn't say I'm angry, but I think the issue now that um, everyday people, celebrities or journalists that already have a platform are now morphing to the space. So, like a Stephen A.
Mm,
Smith is
yeah.
got a podcast and a live stream, and um, Draymond Green. Like, come on, dude!
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you need a podcast. Like you're playing everything, and so I think it makes it harder now to be found. I mean, and it's so saturated now. It makes it
Sure.
like you have to be just super. Uh, you have to be super, I guess,
Creative.
diligent and
Yeah.
creative, and then find other ways to get your podcast out there. And I think, I mean, and I know there's more than enough people to go around, but
Yeah.
I just think it makes it harder to get found.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah, definitely because of the saturation of it. Um, the way to rise the rankings aren't as easy as it used to be, and also the
Yeah.
the the spotlight is now kind of like been isolated to a few different players. I don't know about you. I'm kind of okay with it. I'm kind of
Oh,
okay with
really?
it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, let me sort of like
Yeah.
lay the field out a little bit. I'm
Yeah.
okay with
Please.
it in a
Yes. Please
sense that
clarify.
yeah. I'm like I'm not okay with it, but like I'm okay. I'm resolved in it because I think for two reasons. First reason, I think it's too much of a mountain to climb to sort of like I guess go against the system or at least
Mm,
figure out what the better way is. But number two, I think that what makes podcasting unique against, I would say, not traditional media, but like the uh, the streaming media is
mm,
that you are probably doing just perfectly fine within your own space. So within our
mm,
travel space, our hospitality space, pay me and plane tickets has ascended to become a voice now. It's become a landing spot for hospitalities and travelers. And I would also levy that on to Black Men Speak that as it relates to like community and culture and relationships. Like it's its own landing spot, and also it has its space too. That it won't. It probably pay me and plane tickets may never reach the I don't know what Stephen A. Smith is saying.
echelon.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, the
Or
echelon
it
of Stephen A. Smith, whatever.
reach
So yeah,
Spotify status.
exactly. Yeah, we're not going to be Joe Rogan or whatever it
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
but it's like when we. But I can. But for Pay Me in Plain Tickets, we can go to the Hilton CEO and say, hey, come on, say what's up. Like what's happening with what happened with Q4, man, or Q3, and it just passed.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
Like
okay.
there's like this budding like growth that we have, and so um, when it comes to like podcast rankings, and I'll ask you this, like, do you feel the same way? Like, hey, look, we won't be in the upper echelon as you just astutely pointed, but we just might be fine in our own sort of like sector.
I think so. No, I would say for Black Men Speak, probably not. I think because it's not niche enough.
Mm.
It's not niche enough where if I was like Black Men Speak about relationships or Black Men Speak about money, where it's like, okay, this is the place to come for that specific thing. It's more. I like to, when I think of the show, I really think of CBS Sunday Morning for like Black men, because
Ah,
I'm trying to find unique stories to tell that normally wouldn't get told.
okay.
Like case in point, um, there was, and I wish I could remember his name. I'm really the senior moments are coming, man. The guy, there was a guy that who has been in not Rikers, uh, death row at St. Quentin for 40 plus years.
Oh wow. Oh
Yeah.
wow.
And so I found out about him because he's the author of The Bird Has My Wings. So and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Oprah Book Club. I was like, oh, it's Oprah Book Club. I've never even heard of this. Like, this is
Right.
fascinating. So I just reached out and then I was able to interview him from the prison.
Wow.
Yeah. And because he ran the phone bank at the prison because he
Wow.
had been there. So he'd been there long enough,
Yeah.
and so I was able to interview him, and so it was just that was just fascinating,
Wow.
and it wouldn't have been able if I hadn't like had the podcast that I would have never heard about this guy.
Right.
And
Right.
so when I do the podcast, to me, it's always inspiring because not am I highlighting Black men doing great things, but you learn a lot.
Yeah. No, that's very true.
Yeah.
How did, so let me ask you this question. How did you start? I mean, I get that it was internet radio, but like what was it like internet radio you saw that was sort of a way to kind of connect with others and also learn about ideas outside of what was being presented in traditional media? But what was kind of your inspiration behind Black Men Speak?
I mean, well, the inspiration behind it was that the voices of Black men weren't being elevated,
Mm,
um, because there was a. I mean, well, let me back up. They're only being elevated in athletics and entertainment. So
that
I
is true.
try to find stories that don't fall in those categories because, yeah, everybody knows that we have Black men of power in those spheres. LeBron James or Spike Lee. Yeah, those are like household names. Tyler Perry.
Yeah.
But in other spaces, we don't. We're not. We don't have the stories to tell. So, and there Black women were banding together, and they had Black girls rock, Black girls this. And Black women are very, very great at that as one of their connectors of getting together, and I think they do because they feel that they're only Black women are going to be protective of them.
Ah, I
So
got
that's why they can easily band together, do these
you. Mhm.
things. I'm sure when you've done your travel thing, you'll see a group of Black women, and you could probably count on one hand if there was a group of Black men that were traveling, and and may not be and may not be able to count on one of those hands. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And,
that's a good point. Yeah.
and so that's why I created it to elevate the voices, or just tell the stories. And And it's really been great for me, and I've really learned and heard about different people doing great things.
Okay. And so, how has this podcast journey been for you so far? Like, are you seeing are you getting the response you actually desired since starting this? Since you saw what was lacking, are you seeing that the hole is now being filled, or
I think, well, no, I don't. I think it's still out there. I think the biggest challenge I see is that sensationalism is king. So,
talk about it? Talk about it,
so,
man.
so because the show's not necessarily sensational,
Mhm.
we're not going to be talking about it's not going to be a Diddy. We're not going to have a Diddy party, or talking about the things that are polarizing,
That's true.
or talking about the things that I guess black men will tend to gravitate to,
Right.
which would be sports. So I
Yeah.
haven't really done sports. I've never had a sports person on,
Yeah.
or well, the closest one was a friend of mine, but he wasn't. He was in sports journalism. He wasn't in sports, and we didn't talk about sports per se. So that's the thing, and it's more. Would I say it's So it would take some time to find it,
Yeah.
but I think would have oh, and so the only sports person that's sorry, back up. The only sports person I had is like a show that I wanted you to listen to, Alphonse Dotson. So he's a former Oakland Raider,
Okay.
but he has a winery in Texas, and he has only and so his story was fascinating. I mean, he was long winded, but but a fascinating story nonetheless because he um, he had done so many different things and kind of fell into
Mhm.
the winery thing because I think one of the owners, or somebody that he that was in the I think the Raiders organization, took him under his wing and helped him along in the winery process, and then he happened to um, meet his wife in I think Acapulco, and
Mhm.
then he found some land in like central Texas and makes his own wine. So yeah, that and I mean, and that was just it's just fascinating stories that okay, yeah, no one would ever hear about this story from a national level. So I think that's the one thing that I guess feel grateful for. So it may not be
Right.
big, but I'm grateful that I get to tell some of the stories.
And look, and they're grateful for you, and they're grateful for you as well. It's reciprocated very well.
Yeah,
And to mention, I feel like I'm going to actually look into this Alphon Stockton,
Alphonse
right?
Dotson. Yeah,
Stotson, because I feel like, I do like my wine. Um, I feel like I may have run into his wine before or something. The name is ringing some of
yeah.
them,
It's I
like
think
it's
it's
dinging something in the back of my
yeah,
head.
it's Cervantes Dotson Winery.
I feel
And
like,
it's an
yeah,
award winner. So I don't know if you've been into any of the wine festivals in Texas because he's a very small winery.
yeah,
But my parents live in Texas, and so my dad they have a wine society that they are part of, and he told me about the guy, and so I said, oh yeah, that'd be a great guy to interview because I mean it's extraordinary. One because of the fact that it's in Texas. It's not like in California,
right,
and he was a former athlete. So
yeah,
and it's like, wow, how did he end up in these spaces?
yeah.
So that's where I try to find So it means the one drawback is you have to do a lot of research, and then research, and then trying to reach. And I don't know if you have this challenge trying to reach people. They're like, hey, would you like to be on the podcast? And so
No, we are both in the same boat in terms of, like, the booking sort of process. Um, I would say there's a little bit of an added element to the travel podcast space is that everybody's actually on the move, and they really are.
Mm,
So a lot
right.
of it's like, oh, okay, when are you settled down just for an hour, or just so to kind of like share your story and what time you have. So and maybe you run into the same thing, but I'm just saying like
Right. Right.
there's definitely this like booking thing going on. But I wanted to ask you because you mentioned about your family being from Texas and this wineries in Texas. Do you ever get to travel and get to go out and to see other places and explore other moments? I guess. Do you ever get that chance? I know
That's
you work hard, so I wanna
well. I mean, it's funny that you ask that question because it's yeah. Like I said, that's one of the things I would like. I'd love to hear, and I'll definitely have to listen to more of your podcast. I do think that traveling, it's almost something you want to do. I have a two parts. So traveling seems like something, especially overseas, you want to do with someone.
Okay.
So my if we had a place traveling side by side with my wife and myself. She's been to many more places, and when she does leave, I do get a little aggravated because I'm like, man, I need to go too. But she ends up going with her, her girlfriends, and they have a great time. But it seems like, and I would love to hear your take on this. It seems like black men in general, can't travel in groups like that. So it's almost and it may be kind of not necessarily assumption, but maybe a wall that we put up. So you just won't see a group of men, black men in general, going to some place and tour sightseeing. So
Okay.
if we're gonna travel anywhere, there's got to be a reason. So yeah,
Mm.
we'll go to Las Vegas because yeah, we're going to a fight or the NCAA tournament or what have you.
Ah,
If
I
there's a
got you.
sporting event involved, then yes, we will travel to it. But just to go and take in the culture,
Yeah.
that's not happening.
No,
So,
yeah. I'm going. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
do
yeah.
do you agree? I mean, based on
So,
your experiences, have you seen that's what you've noticed?
so I would say two-parter for me too. So I would say I have actually haven't noticed that because I've always been traveling and I do run into African and African American individuals who are traveling for culture, traveling solo, traveling for things outside of and I'd get like a pinpointed event or like a reason why they're there, whether it be work, whether it be a sporting event, whether it be like that. But I would also say that's a minority. That's a minority population of individuals. The
Mm-hmm.
majority of our culture travels. Well, first off, travel. I've always this is kind of like always been a saying of mine is travel is a luxury. Travel is the new Louis Vuitton,
Mm,
Ferrari, right? So it's definitely not something accessible to everybody, especially in this economy. Number two, I would say, so that's a hindrance against our own culture.
right.
But the number two thing is, yeah, I would say that most of us do travel either with a like an anchor moment, right? So uh, in what you just laid out, there is a game, or there's a
Mm-hmm.
fight, or there's a family reunion, or there's a something where they can kind of like home base it a little bit, and then maybe perhaps if you're like take for example the example you laid out about Vegas. We're going to Vegas for the fight. Like, okay, maybe you go to Vegas for the fight, but then maybe you
Right.
might drive out and see some of the other attractions or assignments that could be around. But that's not
Right.
a
Right.
guarantee, right? So um, I agree with you. Honestly, I agree with you. I would say, just in my experience, I've seen the other side of it. Like it's like I've seen the light, like I've
Okay.
seen the
Okay.
light. But I would say I do know that it's almost like a privilege that I've seen the light. It's not
Right.
necessarily,
Or
yeah,
honeymoon. Yeah, throw
yeah,
honeymoon in. But I mean, I guess as a group of
right.
men, so that they would, and it's unfortunately, I think that's also a disservice because we are missing out on true cultural events. So, case in point, like, so I had to take my daughter to Paris. because she was studying abroad, and I stayed in I wish I could pronounce it, but Mount something. But it was an Airbnb that I found,
Yeah.
and because she was staying with a family, so I stayed. I had my own place, and we had a really good time. It's just funny. I was just remarking about and it was around, might have been around this time too, because they had a winter festival that we went to, and had some mulled wine. It was fantastic.
Beautiful.
And then there was a point, like, because I'd have to travel to get to meet up with her. I kind of was able to walk around and things like that. But then there was also a kind of a scary moment because I don't, of course, don't speak French, and I had to get to the airport. So it was so early in the morning. Someone said, "Oh, just take the train." Like, "Oh yeah, just take the train. You'll get there, no problem." It's like, okay, and I'm like, but then you have certain things in your mind that you take the train you take the subway in Manhattan. There's going to be somebody. There's going to be somebody there that you can
Yeah.
ask questions for. But it was so early in the morning, there was nobody there. So I had no idea which way I was going to get to
Oh,
the subway
wow.
because I didn't speak French and there was nothing that said airporto, nothing. And I was like, I am not going to find this airport. It was crazy, but
Yeah.
still, it was just, so we would, I think we would use this thing. Oh, I'm not going there. I don't speak no French, or I don't do
Right.
this. And
Yeah.
I think we miss out on great opportunities to learn and expand
Yeah.
our knowledge, uh, to make it worthwhile.
And I agree with you. And to your experience, I think that's not far from reality. I do think there's a changing tide though. I
Oh, do
do.
you?
I'm starting to see that again, like travel's a luxury, right? And I'm starting to see that there are a lot more like the younger generation, so younger than me, they are more interested in, you know, even if it's irresponsibly, blowing cash on a trip than blowing cash
Mm-hmm.
on a bag or blowing cash on some name
Mm.
brand thing. So I'm starting to notice that even if it's for vanity reasons of saying, hey, I'm in Paris and look at me, there is this little chance of opportunity that just because you fly to Paris, you have that moment, but then you also might go to, um, you know, um, you know, Canes or whatever is
Yeah. Oh,
well to go check out other things in
right.
France and
Well,
really
and
look
you
into the food and look into the wine and look into the and expand outside of Paris. I'm
and you know
just
why
yeah,
though, but you know why?
well, social media.
Of course,
Yeah.
of course. Of course, everybody
Social media made
wants
it
to
cool now.
show everyone that where they've been, and these are the top 10 places to go while you're in Paris. Go do that,
Right.
I mean, not that that's a bad thing.
Right. No, and
Um,
it's to your point. It definitely, yeah.
so as the, I guess, the resident expert for travel, so on average, so since you've traveled to so many different places, on average, how much money do you think you need to travel? So if you
Great
wanted to
question. Yeah.
prepare for travel,
Yeah.
how much money in order to make it worthwhile, where you're like, okay, even though of course you could probably afford, and I'm just going to run $1,000 and you could get a plane ticket and a hotel, but then
Right.
outside of that, doing nothing.
Yeah.
you
I know.
know,
I love this
you know.
question, man. I love
So
talking
yeah,
to money. I love talking to
what is
bread.
what? How much on average do you think you would need to have a trip where it's like, okay, I really enjoyed myself?
So I come from finance, so we gotta build the financial model the right way.
Okay,
All right. So
oh,
we got to start
you got
with
it built.
we gotta build the model. So there's
Okay,
there's at least in my calculation, there's four different components. So we got to
okay,
first talk when. First got to talk location. We got to talk when. We got to
okay.
talk where, and then we have to talk in what style, right? So
Mm,
if you're trying to book a trip last minute to almost anywhere outside of maybe 100-mile radius, yeah, you got to have at least $2,000 or more.
mm,
If we're
mm.
talking international, so where, and it's not last minute, we're just talking generally speaking.
All right, let's just say Japan. Since I just
Japan,
listened,
everybody's going to Japan right now.
I just listened to one of your podcasts, and somebody had just talked about Japan.
Yes, well, first off, everybody's going to Japan, but so Tokyo. Depend. Okay, so let's say not last minute, we're talking you actually thought this through. This is what you want to do, and then on top of that, you are so then remember the other component of the model is style. Are you looking to do something that is budget friendly? Like you're going to a hostel, you're really just backpacking, you're not buying nothing.
No, we're too old for that. I'm sorry, we're too old for that.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. No. That's not me. I'm like, I want to be at the hotel.
I'm talking about you. That's the show. If we were talking to the 20-year-olds, no, we're too old for that. We are men of a certain age, so exactly. Yeah, that's not happening.
So we're talking a hotel. We're talking at least a comfortable hotel. I'm not saying you got to be at some
Four Seasons
5-star, luxurious mansion type place, but a decent hotel, and then. So let's just start flight and hotel. So the flights can get kind of tricky. I know some real anal people who can find a cheap flight. I mean, they know where to go. They could scour the web. They know the plane ticket space better than the airlines themselves. They're like, I can find a ticket better than the airline's going to give it to me. So I think you can find a decent flight way out in advance to Tokyo for probably maybe $1,000 to $1,500 maybe. And if better, please don't shoot the messenger.
Wow. Okay. 15.
Right.
So we're talking $1,500. Okay.
$1,500 right there. But that's just me speaking. I like to fly United, so that's why I stay with it. I'm like, that's kind of what I'm seeing. Sometimes I see maybe a good around there. Then the hotel, I would see the way I do. I'm very peculiar on my hotels. I like niceties and everything. I think you can get a decent hotel for about a week stay in Tokyo. I'm going to assume about a good $1,000, $1,000 to $1,500, because right now the dollar is so much stronger than the yen.
So
it's so it's like
So with that, so we're roughly talking about
we're talking $2,500 right now already, and that's just flight hotel.
Flight and hotel. Yes,
flight and hotel.
You haven't done anything yet.
We haven't done any. We haven't even called.
Once you get in the hotel, once you've gotten into the hotel, that's you're not going anywhere else.
Right, yeah. You're just looking at the views.
Just
looks
nice. Around.
The way I've always budgeted it is like I always say, like, set aside a good 50% for spending money. So just to like your transportation, your eating, your things. Wow. So in this particular scenario, I'm saying about $1,500 or $1,000 set aside to like be able to transport, maybe get some, not necessarily expensive food, but just good food, good restaurant, and I'm very sure in Japan you can find it for very cheap.
Yeah.
So again, so with that tacked on, we're talking almost that's at $4,000 right there.
About $5 somewhere.
So there it is. So an international trip to Japan, I think that's now again. I think it can be beat.
We're talking about $7,000.
Yeah. Well, I would.
Because you got to go to places.
You got to go to places. You got to go to attractions, things like that.
Yeah.
But most attractions, I believe, are free. They're the stairs are free. Going to maybe you tip or something. Going to different what do you call it? Prefectures. Yeah. Different neighborhoods, whatever. Yeah.
Right. So roughly in a trip anywhere over seas is about 5 to 7.
And this is where I just had a conversation with another individual about this. So I have this prediction. So I used to do a lot of my trips on points. I was the big get points, earn it, churn it, burn it, right? That was my whole thing at one point. But now, as I've entered into my later ages and stages,
hold on.
Yeah, do you think?
Oh, okay.
Okay, we good?
Yeah.
Everything sound good? All
Oh
right.
yeah, it was great. Yeah.
No. Okay. So this is what I'm thinking. I had a conversation with this another individual about this. So just literally 2 weeks ago, I used to be a points guy. You know, earn, churn, burn, that whole thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I got out the gate. I said I'm a cash only
Oh
guy.
wow. Okay.
Everybody laughs at me. I'm a debit card. I'm a debit card guy. That's it. I don't even bother with the points and stuff anymore.
Okay.
Um, uh, and here's the thing I have a prediction. A lot of people, just like with the Louis Vuitton bags and the Ferraris, they're buying this stuff. A lot of Westerners and Americans, they're buying this stuff on debt. They're racking up their credit cards. They're not
Mm.
paying it off in full every month as a responsible financial individual. They're just paying the minimums or whatever. They're getting by just on this accruing debt, and that's how the travel
So that's
industry
how
is being
that's how they're doing
propped
it.
up. That's how they're doing it. A lot of them are, they're flying, on credit cards and things of that nature. And some are responsible, some, but the credit card game is it's like Russian roulette. If you're not, you could be good for a while until one day the bullet hits you, and
Right.
whatever it is, yeah, it just catches you off guard, and you're like, dang it, like I didn't see this coming or whatever. You just life happens, whatever.
Yeah.
And but a lot of so the travel industry, the travel sector is growing in $1 billion sector, and it keeps increasing. And a lot of it, I believe, is propped on just because of financial irresponsibility. And
Oh
so I
yes.
believe like it's a bubble that's going to pop soon,
Oh, is it?
in where you're gonna have to have this harsh reality and saying, okay, everybody's maxed out on their credit cards, everybody's maxed out on their personal loans. This is it. Okay, you guys have the hotels and the cruise liners and the airlines were able to charge exorbitant amount of prices because everybody kept paying for it, but they were paying for it on debt. They were paying for it
Mm.
on debt. So now when the bubble bursts, when nobody can pay for it in debt anymore, they have to go back down to real prices to kind of keep the airlines business afloat, to keep the travel business afloat, to keep the hotel business
So
afloat, or
you
even the cruise business. Yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating. I mean, I figured that's how people were doing it, but not that the industry was being propped up by it, and the
That's just
fact
my
that they've
assumption.
been able to inflate the prices because people are paying.
Yeah,
That's
because it's all about the hotel industry operates on occupancy rate. So if there's 10 rooms available at a hotel, and then you have 7 rooms that are booked up, then those last 3 rooms they can kind of like flush around prices and figure out if you really want to be at this hotel or be at this place, we can charge you X amount of dollars. And a
right.
lot of times, they're the people who are deciding to bid on these hotel rooms at these exorbitant prices. They're using credit cards to do it, and it's not bad. I'm not saying it's bad to use a credit card. I'm okay with using a credit card, but I think there's a lot of financial irresponsibility with using the credit card, especially when you're
Right.
you're young and you think money grows on trees and it goes going forever and ever.
Hence,
So,
hence,
yeah.
that's why I have not been anywhere extravagant. Because I mean, when you have a family and stuff like, you just
Yeah,
can't just.
you
That's
got
not
real life
something
hitting
you.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not something you can just like do irresponsibly. You know what I mean?
You have to be smarter. But one thing I learned, and this is the thing I've learned, um, uh, non-Westerners, they don't use credit cards because there isn't a credit card game to them for them to use. Because there isn't any like points, miles, things for them to sort of
Mm.
achieve or be
Oh, really?
enticed by. So they truly
Wow,
are just
really?
like they're
Okay.
using cash. They're just like, yeah, we save our money, we use our cash, we either spend it,
Mm.
blow it, and we go home, and it's fine. They don't owe anybody anything. They just are generally
But I mean, and let's but the here's the beauty though. When they're in Europe,
yeah.
they can travel so cheaply.
Right. Yeah. No, that's the difference. Yeah, they got the train that gets them for $30.
I mean, they can do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Um, and more than the ones that really want to come to the U.S. are coming, but for the most part, they don't have to go to. Yeah, so
Right.
that's the difference.
Yeah. It's my
Whereby we going to Florida, you paying a lot. You paying
yeah,
at
especially
least two
Florida.
thousand, $2,000, at least just to go to Miami.
Man, Miami's nice. But Orlando was ridiculous. Orlando
Well,
was
that's only
cool.
because that's only
Yeah,
because
yeah.
the Disney.
Disney
That's only because
World,
of
right?
Disney.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
you know what I found was really nice. I mean, which was a good trip was Tampa.
Oh, I
So we
didn't know
went to
that.
Tampa because for the spring training, and it was very nice because they have it's more of a small business feel, and they had a
Yeah.
nice. It was I was very surprised,
Well,
very
that's
surprised.
interesting. So you went to Tampa. You're telling me it was much more of a small business sort of homey feel, but it seemed like it was fair prices.
Yeah, I mean it, well, I mean it wasn't overly crowded like
Gotcha.
Miami. You're gonna have a certain because it's Miami, the price is gonna be inflated.
Of course, no, of course.
Yeah,
There's a
and
yeah,
so I mean Orlando because everyone's going to Disney. It's
Disney
like yeah,
World.
Disney's got to get
Yeah,
paid.
yeah.
So that was the thing that I thought was quite interesting. And so do you? I mean another weird. Do you find that we don't appreciate our country enough? Because I mean you could really
Mm.
probably find great places within the U.S.,
Yeah,
but we always look at the extravagant places to
yeah.
travel.
No, you touched on a very important subject. Yeah, there are tons of beautiful places in America that don't get enough shine or light because of the attention placed on other aspirational locations, the
Right.
Maldives, or even, you mentioned Japan, or you mentioned, or we can talk about, Sydney, Australia, or
Yeah.
we can talk about tons of it. But you forget there's Yellowstone. You forget that there's
Oh,
also
have you been? Have you been to Yellowstone?
I haven't been to Yellowstone. I want to. I really
Dude,
do
it's
want to
a
go.
must. It's a must
I mean, it's a
must
hidden
place
gem.
to
It's
go.
a hit. So you've been.
I have been, yeah. I went to
Oh,
the Grand Tetons and
wow,
it was fantastic. So I, went for a bike trip.
wow.
And I was like, "Oh, let me go." And I said, "Let me go somewhere I know I wouldn't go otherwise."
Yeah.
And um it was fantastic. It was probably if I had to select as if I had to put in I wouldn't I don't know if I'd say Mount Rushmore of trips.
Hmm.
But if I had to put in top five, that
That
would
would be
definitely be
it.
one of them. Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's
yeah.
and that's shocking to hear because you don't hear that from many people. It's not shocking to hear that Yellowstone is beautiful, but it's shocking to hear that it's in your top five because you don't hear that from many people. They all no, but because nobody has been there or even thinks about it. They think about other locations like you know uh, they think about other mountainous locations in terms of like maybe South America, in Ecuador where you can go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
things like this.
I
Yeah.
mean, one of the things as far as if I have to say my travel style would be more of an explorer
Hmm.
type. I mean, I'm not laying out on the beach type thing.
Okay, you're more mountainous. You're more mountainous.
Yeah. Well, I'm just like I mean, where I go, I want to go explore and see
Okay.
things.
Okay. Yeah, makes
Um,
sense.
I'm it's like, oh, let me just go and lay out. No, 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 because that's like, I can do that at home, or some beach that's. Why would I want to just go lay out and do that? So, like, I'll go to the museum, and
Yeah.
like, even when I had to go to New Mexico
Wow.
for
Another beautiful state, by the way.
a work event,
Yeah.
and it was fantastic. I was like, wow, like I mean, I would have never expected um,
Yeah.
that it would be. I mean, it's a pain to get to. And I had that. I mean, probably worst travel experiences on earth. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, no. I think one lack that North America has is that it doesn't promote its own country more. In terms of the beauty that it does entail. New Mexico is one of them. That's on my list. I do want to visit New Mexico.
oh, okay,
I do want to visit Arizona as well. I mean,
yeah,
I,
like
I have visited Arizona, but it was more like in standing. It wasn't necessarily. I
right,
didn't get to see the Grand Canyon. I didn't necessarily get to see the city itself. But like compare that marketing pitch for North America against the marketing pitch in Europe, where they're showcasing France and Italy and Spain. And you can visit all Greece. You can visit all these places on one single train ride. It's it's almost
yeah,
it's almost unbeatable, and the difference is mounting. So I agree with you. I do think that there are tons of places in America that are not given as much shine as it should be. I mean, states like Utah. We also forget it sounds crazy. There is beauty in even when it's cold. There's the New England states. You have Boston and Maine and things of that nature.
Yeah. Have you been up to Maine?
I have. Yeah, actually, I have been up to Maine. I have been up to Maine.
Mm-hmm.
But I was there when I was really young, so I don't
Okay.
recall it very much. But I was up there in Maine. I was in Maine. So
Yeah, and I would love to
yeah.
get up there. I mean, the farthest I've gotten is Boston.
Okay.
I think the one challenge is me because I'm not a cold weather guy. So because I'm not going any kind of skiing. I've had a ski traumatizing event, and so that's not happening. So
All right, hold on. I'll let you go.
no, go with this.
No, because I'm gonna say, I give myself. My lady loves to ski, and I only ski once a year. I give myself one ticket a year to ski just because it's only fair. But I will say this: I'm not a ski person either. I'm not even that much of a cold or snow weather person either. But that should not make you shy away from going at least to the lodges. If you go to the Dolomites in Italy, I might not ski in the Dolomites, but I'll go to the nice, beautiful lodge and relax and get some hot cocoa.
But that's Italy. You know what I mean? Goodness, jeez. I mean, but yeah, I mean, but you're in Italy, so that's a whole. I think it takes on a whole different flavor. But that on screen. Oh, here we go. So let me ask you from a travel standpoint, just for you personally, what's your Mount Rushmore of travel? Your Mount Rushmore travel experiences.
Okay. I'm gonna give you my three.
Okay.
Well, Mount Rushmore, I think it's four, right? So I'm gonna give you four, right? I can't
4.
remember.
Yeah.
So
I think it's 4. Yeah, 4.
yeah, four, right? So number one would be Iceland.
Iceland.
Yeah, I'll list it out for you first, and
And
then
it's
I'll
1
go
to 4 or just the 4?
This is
Because you're gonna
number
just say
one.
Iceland because of the Northern Lights.
No, I didn't get to see the North Lights. I didn't get to
Oh
see the
wow.
North Lights. I was there in April of 2018. I was there April
Okay.
2018. Let me tell you about Iceland. Iceland is the most beautiful country I've ever visited. It has. I tell people this. It's actually very dangerous to drive, and here's why. Because when I drove in Iceland, I'm so distracted by the beauty. I kept looking off. I'm like, I'm gonna crash this car if I don't pay attention. And
Wow. Okay.
so it's such a beautiful country.
Okay.
The food is great. Everybody's just friendly and nice. And honestly, you feel alive there. You feel as if you are truly a part of nature. I was able to go to a place called Hofsós in northern Iceland, and
Okay.
everybody ventures to the Blue Lagoon, which is like this, very popular pool
Oh
that's out there
yes.
in Iceland. But there's a pool out there in Hofsós and in northern Iceland,
Okay.
and it's a pool that overlooks a forge. So a bunch of different mountains and a massive river right
Okay.
in the middle of it, and there's a pool on this hill. And I remember, and I'm almost like just tearing up thinking about it. I remember just being in this pool, just being in a moment of like pause and peace, just watching just nature just flow, the river flow by, the beautiful mountains, and
Okay.
I got to swim some laps there. But it's a hot pool, so it's not like you're
Oh
outside
wow. Okay.
cold, and the water's actually they heat up the
Warm.
water.
Oh, they heat
Yeah,
it up. Oh
and
wow.
yeah, they heat it
Okay.
up. The pool's only open, if I can remember correctly, I believe it's only open from like April to like September, because the rest of the month the weather's too
Gotcha. Okay.
rigorous for that. But it was one of the highlights from my Icelandic trip, and I remember it's about 6 hours from Reykjavik. So Reykjavik's the major city out there in Iceland. Everybody flies to Reykjavik and they hang out in Reykjavik, and I did hang out in Reykjavik, and it's a beautiful city too. But I took a rental car, drove up to I woke up early in the morning and took a 6-hour drive. I drove through all different terrain in my it was
Mm.
a Kia Rio Sport. I don't even some little
Yeah,
rental car.
you're
And
an adventurous brother then.
I was like,
The lanes are quite tiny.
the lanes were. I'm gonna send you the pictures later. The lanes were very tight. And then at one point, actually, I got a little bit nervous. You know, my black dart started going off. I was like, this might be a little too much. It was like,
Yeah.
I started noticing that it was snowing, and I was like, my car is not built for this type of snow. And I took a picture of just like there was a van in front of me, and I had to like I don't know why I closed my eyes. I was like, I'm gonna just keep going. I'm gonna just go for this and go. And I went up the mountain, and eventually the snow stopped, and it was nothing. But
Wow.
I
Okay.
got to the pool, and it was beautiful. So Iceland is my Mount
Iceland.
Rushmore.
Okay.
I'm gonna give a few others. South Africa is another
Okay. I would
country
think. Yeah.
I tell people to go visit. It's a great way to open yourself to Africa, even though it's not the perfect way. It's a great way to kind of get used to it a little bit. You kind of get jumped right in there.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna go Mexico City, number 3.
Oh, I've heard Mexico City's like
Mexico
the
City.
place.
Yeah, Mexico City is a place. Yeah, Mexico City. I think actually in the last, and you might be right. Yeah, in the last like couple of years, it's really
Yeah,
blossomed.
somebody mentioned it.
Yeah,
Didn't they have the Olympics there? That not recently, or it was a while. It must have been a while ago.
maybe.
Yeah.
I don't
Okay.
even
Mexico
know.
City. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I would suggest to everybody stay at the Umakasa. So there's a boutique hotel out there called the Umakasa,
Hmm.
UMA space Casa CASA.
Okay.
And it's a beautiful property out there. I mean, Mexico City has food culture and a lot of play there. That
Yeah,
is
you might be able to get there for 3,000.
Oh yeah, no. Mexico City is
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely
That's a
the
good
lower
one.
side of the spectrum in terms
Okay.
of pricing and budgeting. But
Nice.
well, if you go, when we went, me and the lady, we went to Mexico, and she was in Mexico for like 2 months. It
Yeah.
was like 2 months, 1 month. But I came on the tag because I just came from South Africa. I'm like, I'm gonna just tag along, and we were there, and we were there for Dia de los Muertos, which is
Oh yeah, the Day of the Dead. Oh,
October,
don't.
and
Yes.
Day of the
Yes.
Dead, and it was so definitely book early if you want to go. And but there, when you go there, you get to see all the parade, the festival, the costumes, all the stuff, all the history and culture behind it, and it was a
Oh,
fun,
nice.
it was a great time.
Okay.
Number four is a tough one because there's gonna be a few that hit the spot, but I'm gonna go and say. I'm gonna say Maui for now, Hawaii, but it can change. I'm gonna leave it to change.
If it can change.
Maui can change. Yeah, Maui's comfortable. I say Maui's very comfortable.
No, that's a
Actually,
safe pick.
I'm gonna change my pick. I'm gonna change my
Okay.
map. I'm gonna go DC. I'm gonna go
DC.
DC. DC has culture. It has great food. It has the you can go check out all the different museums and monuments, and it's a small enough city to explore. And you got a lot of fun in DC.
DC is a great DC. That's true. DC is great. Yes.
It doesn't get talked about much because it's New York. It's everything. And
I mean, it has a great energy, though.
it
Yeah,
has a
yeah.
brilliant energy. Yeah.
I would agree. Because I just went to the Holocaust Museum. Have you been?
I have not
It's a
been.
must. It's a must attend.
Okay, I'm gonna go there. Yeah, I'm gonna check
It
it out.
was quite fascinating just to see because I know folks will try to poo-poo that the Holocaust is not the same as slavery, and yes, it's.
Right.
I mean, I know it's more of oppression over a longer period of time,
Right.
but the atrocities that were done is unbelievable. The feel that because the people were, for the most part, were their kind.
Right. Yeah.
Were their kind just because they were.
Yeah.
They were Jewish, and it was great. It was a great.
No. I plan to go. I mean, I always highlight the African American Museum, the National African American Museum in DC as well. But I'm gonna check out the Holocaust Museum. I got to go back to these. Look, first off, Georgetown's doing great. So Georgetown basketball is doing great. So now I have a reason to go back.
Well, that's very short lived. By the time you talk to me in March, that won't be the case. That will not be the case. Trust me.
I should probably enjoy it before it gets bad. So
Yeah,
let me jump
yeah.
in
You don't have to
quickly.
have much time. Yeah, because they have gone. They no more cupcake cities for them. They will be playing real teams.
You're right. You're right.
That is funny. That
No,
is
I
funny.
got you. No, but I asked this of my guests as well. So you asked me Mount Rushmore, but what is your not Mount Rushmore? What is your most desired place to go visit to in maybe the
Mm.
coming years? What is like what's on your like bucket list?
I mean, that's a great question, and so that's also nice for people that haven't traveled as much. I definitely would love to see. Definitely Africa. That's like you gotta. That's like a. I know for people that's a must, but yes, Africa. Um, that would be one. If I had to give like kind of the Mount Rushmore, I want to go to New Zealand. I think is probably a beautiful place to go. Um,
Okay.
I think Brazil. See, Brazil.
Okay.
I take a pause on that because I'm sure it's very nice, but it seems like it's more focused on partying. And
Okay. That's true.
not that I'm saying
Yeah.
that's bad, but could be dangerous. Be quite dangerous. Um,
All
I
right.
think I would like to do Italy again. I mean, when I went to Europe, I was in high school, so our high school band went.
Oh wow.
We went on a trip,
Oh, that's
but we were
amazing.
there to perform. And we did do sightseeing,
Mhm.
but I think it takes on a different flavor when you are when you're an adult.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would like to, go to the wineries and really
Mm.
taste the food and really do it up right. I think that would be,
Yeah.
and then also on the bucket list is to go to London
Wow. Okay. Okay.
for soccer for Premier League game.
Got you. Okay. All right. Now that actually is like a pretty
Yeah,
big. That's a pretty big deal. Yeah.
that definitely just has to be done. But there's a friend of mine or a guy that I interviewed,
Mm.
black guy named Paul Brunson, and he's like a relationship guy in London. But he's part owner of a team.
Oh wow. Get out of
That's
here.
not one of the top teams, but that would just be a cool experience
Wonderful.
just to do
Wow.
that. And I think if I wanted to like domestically to throw one in there, I think would like to go to Seattle or at least
Oh,
Washington
Seattle.
State.
Got you.
Yeah,
The
and
home of Starbucks.
experience it because I've been to usually the big states. So I've been to Chicago, I've been to L.A., I've been to um, Miami, but I mean Miami doesn't really
Yeah.
thrill me that much just because
No.
it's like not just like, oh yeah, that's one where you really got to go to the beach. I know they have culture and all
Yeah.
that, but
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think and lived in Houston for a while, and so I think Seattle would be kind of the next
Next
big
frontier.
city
Yeah.
to see because it's like it's a big city, but then it's like mountainous as well.
Okay. I mean, look, I believe that's the land of Starbucks. That's where it started.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So what you have is Africa, New Zealand, Brazil. Brazil, yeah, you're right. It is definitely more.
No, not Brazil. Brazil's not on the list. I thought of Brazil, but
You think?
no, yeah, that would.
Okay.
Yeah, that's if I fall in with if we get a group of guys that want to go, that would be
There
fun.
we go.
That's a good guys trip.
We gotta get the black men speak.
Yeah, no, you know what I
Group
mean.
travel
That's funny.
to Brazil. There it is. And then of course, if you do anything domestically, it'd be Seattle.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh wow! All right. So, and I actually I'm interested in learning and actually asking you why New Zealand, because New Zealand is not a country you hear not many
Definitely
individuals.
Lord of the Rings, or
Okay.
Game of Thrones. It was one of them.
Ah,
Yeah,
okay, got you. Beautiful,
yeah,
beautiful. Yeah,
yeah.
Game of Thrones is
Definitely. Yeah, that's probably the only. It just looks like a beautiful country.
well, it
Um,
is. Yeah,
yeah,
most certainly. I haven't been, but I've heard a lot about it.
yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those countries where I think you're gonna get your dollar's worth out of
Yeah, yeah,
it. You'll be
absolutely. Yeah, I
fine.
mean, it's worth it. It's all the way across the world kind of thing. But I mean, Japan too. I mean,
Yeah,
Japan
true,
will be
true,
really not.
true.
But with Japan, I would like to go to many different areas. So that's not just Tokyo, because I'd like to see the terrain and
Mhm.
the castles or whatever they have. So that would be something that's a kind of
Yeah.
a long trip where you get to see, not because the city's great, but I would love to see the kind of the history behind it. Yeah.
When you do travel, are you able to travel in a way where you can stay for greater than 2 weeks, or is it more maybe?
I had no. There
Gotcha.
is none of that. That will work for. I'll work from Tokyo. No, no. There hasn't been any of in that as of yet.
As of
As
yet, but hey, look, a blessing can happen anyway.
I mean, I mean, longer than 2 weeks. We're talking. That's a $10,000 savings. So that'll be what we'll
What we're talking about.
either that
Yeah.
or get blessed with that somehow.
Yeah.
Here you go. But that's cool.
No, no, because uh, Japan, I've heard, is it's one of those locations where because as you pointed out, you want to
Yeah.
visit many different spots within Japan. It's not like going to one area and exploring that particular area. It's like different particulars
Yeah.
of Japan. You need more than
Yeah. I'm sure it's a
a
10 day or at
yeah,
least.
yes, yes, exactly.
At
It's a
least.
very like extended type of a travel or trip. So
At least. Yes.
yeah, if you could get the hey, I'm just like you, man.
Yeah. I hear you.
We are PTO finessing, as they
That's
say.
right. That's right. So yeah, this has been awesome. I mean, and I know we just had a conversation, but one of the things that I always like to end, and you may have an ending thing too, but is, now that we're going into the new year, how are you feeling kind of as a black man going into the new year?
Oh, wow, that's the first one, man. That's the first one. As a
Yeah, I like
black
to
man,
be I always end them cold because this is always a surprise question. So
yeah, you got me good. Um, uh, Going into New Year, I'm very, well, look, by nature, I'm an optimist. I try. I mean, I'm a realist, but I'm an optimist as well. So I'm very positive with what I know that I can accomplish in next year, and also
okay.
with what I can do in terms of uh, giving back and also in helping my own community, whether it be the travel community, whether it be the black community, whether it be the swimming or surf community that I've been able to sort of partake in.
Mm,
I'm very positive that I can be a positive impact, and I hope that is something that comes off well to others and whatnot. Um, you know, there's a lot of movement happening in the world today, but I think for the most part, it'll all get settled and it'll all be just okay.
mm,
That's the optimist speaking, but
okay.
yeah, definitely there's trips planned for next year, and I'm
Okay.
excited for those. And there's some big goals on the horizon, and I pray I can actually reach those. But yeah, that's a good way to end it. And I'm gonna levy it to you, man. what's what's your thoughts on the horizon as a black man in
Mm.
2025?
It's so fun. No one's really when I ask, and no one's asked me.
Hey, the mic gets turned back on you. It's
Yeah,
all
I
you.
mean, I think that for me, I think it's possibilities. One of the things, and I don't want to leave it to Trump. We've kind of seen that rodeo before.
Yeah,
We didn't know what was going to happen 4 years ago,
yeah,
and so he seems like a guy that does not change. He doesn't change. He's going to be the same. He's going to be who he is, and so we know how to navigate that. I do think that he may try to ratchet it up a little bit. That may be a problem. I do think that I think for me for 2025 will be just a time of grabbing or being succinct on the things that I do and can control, I guess, for a lack of a better word, and try not to worry about all of the other things. 2024 was a little bit challenging in some aspects, and so when you and there was a pause in like work things, and then when you get back into it, you're like, okay, you start to, I think, as each year goes by, you start to think about, well, what is it that I really want to do, or what is it that I enjoy? I think because some of the stuff that we do now is not necessarily enjoyable, and you see,
Yeah.
and I get firsthand knowledge to see that we don't have to keep doing the same thing. You can carve out a niche or a lane in
Yeah.
another way, and it can be successful. I mean,
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, the kids today are not going to school; they're finding other alternative ways to make income.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's out of necessity, but I do think some of that is out of necessity because older people haven't stepped aside and retired. They are in jobs, and so therefore, the back in the day, they would retire, and we were able to fill the gaps. But that's not happening anymore.
Yeah.
And so they're like, look, they got to find other ways to make income, and then they realize it's like, oh, the traditional ways are whack.
Yeah.
I can do
No.
these other ways and be just if not more successful. And so now you start to think about as you get older, it's like, do I find other ways to be happy? And I applaud those individuals. I'm sure you've had them on the show that have chucked the corporate life
Yeah.
and figured out how to make it so. And I think that's pretty cool. I think because I don't know if you've seen the movie. What was that movie with what's her name? Oh, Franz McDormand, where she was a vagabond basically. She didn't have her
Oh,
job and she just basically lived in her car.
oh
It was a
wow.
great movie. Um, but I only meant to say is that there is no one way to to live.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, no, what you're mentioning is right. And I do come across that with the younger generation. And again, it's kind of like it goes back. This is like straight up back in a circle where it's the catalyst of pay me in plane tickets because I noticed that the younger generation are finding ways to travel. And what made it shocking to me was they're doing it as almost if they didn't have a job and they just were able to go anywhere and do anything and move about freely that I think you and I weren't accustomed to. We were used to the PTO finessing style where it's 2 weeks here,
yeah, yeah.
2 weeks there, and that's about it for your year. And, that gave you X amount of spaces to travel to per year, per blah, blah, blah. And then the younger generation took it a step above. They found a way to
Right,
monetize off of it.
right,
And whether or not it's a complete overhaul of salary, it's still a different way to skin a cat.
right.
And I think it's showcasing something that um, uh, that isn't presented necessarily in your high school years with your guidance counselor. Like, well, you can be a travel influencer if you
Yeah,
wanted
yeah.
to. Like that's not necessarily on the pamphlet. But it's it's
Right.
it's reality now with the
Yeah,
new industry, I guess, so to speak.
yeah. Because there's my wife had found a fascinating YouTube where all she does is camp, and she has 1.5 million, I think 15 million followers or some kind of wildness.
Wow.
Yeah, she just camps and she goes to different places and camp. She doesn't talk. All she does is she sets out her thing, her little. I mean, she has a nice. It's the 5-star, the Four Seasons tent. She's got
Oh
that.
wow.
Yeah, so you can find ways to do it, and it's kind of back to the whole. It's a way to kind of close out. I get the podcasting thing. You can find your tribe.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Right.
if you
Right.
if you you know you lay it out and consistent, you'll find your tribe, and so there you go.
No, you're right, man. No, yeah. Look, you can definitely find your tribe. It's not as I guess I don't know if to say it's not as structured as it was before, but it's just not as like closed off as it was before. You graduate, you go do your XYZ, and then you're in this box for the next 30 years.
Yeah.
I'm not in that space. I'm like observing from a distance that space.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, okay, how are you guys doing? Like, I'm wondering. For me, and I know we're trying to close out, but like, for me, it's and I want to ask you this question, like, what's the longevity in it? Like, is this going to be the lasting model, or is this like not necessarily? I think it's beyond a fad, but I think is it a
No, I
short
mean,
temporary
no.
thing?
The next, I'm telling you, the next phase, if there's a way we could jump on it, the next thing will be the immersive.
Mm.
It'll be immersive, like the I've done not the AI, the virtual. I've done the virtual Apple virtual world, like they had it at the Apple store,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
it was insane.
It was insane. Yeah,
Just
it was.
that's the next wave,
Man, let me
whereby
tell you.
you will be is almost you like. I'm just taking the example of the woman that does the camping. You will be like in her land. Like
Oh, I get what
you're
you're saying.
almost there
Uh,
with her camping, and then it may be so much that you're actually having a conversation. Like you're there actually talking with the person.
you know what? I can agree to that.
And
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the next wave. I mean,
You're in the spot now.
and right, yeah, because right now because imagine if you could go to Japan, you walk around and you don't leave your house. That's the next thing.
There it
You're like, oh, I
is.
went to
There it
Japan,
is. Yeah.
and yeah,
And
and
you
that
and
because
guess what?
that thing is like $3,000 right now. That
And
virtual thing.
it's three. But look, it's $3,000. You can go to Japan, and you would have saved yourself $5,000 to $7,000.
So
How
there you
crazy
go.
is that?
Yeah.
so how
So
crazy?
there you go. Because it's really a sensory thing. If you
Yeah.
felt like you're there and you were walking around, but you know, yeah.
You
I mean,
touched
I don't
on
know.
it.
You won't really get to deal with the other senses. Like you're not going to touch
But
food.
here,
You're not going to eat the
I
food.
oh
But
man, we're going okay. Look, no, because I'm gonna say this thing because what you just mentioned, right, is what I think is another incoming sort of black swan event with travel is that some places um, you don't have to touch, see, and smell it, right? For example, Mount Everest. You would love to see Mount Everest and maybe climb Mount Everest, but you probably won't. And it'd be nice if just one person does it. They put it on their virtual space, and then you
mm-hmm.
can put on your glasses and be like, "Oh, so that's what it is." Or, for example, right now in today's age, you know, a lot of people say Paris isn't all it's cracked up to be. So you can just be like, "Hey, look, let me just see the Eiffel Tower and call it a day. I don't have to fly there. I've heard it's not necessarily." So imagine just that. But yeah, it is as you pointed out. It's
Well, I
becoming
guess we will
yeah,
see.
yeah. Well,
We
let
will
us figure that
see.
one out. I don't know.
Well,
Uh,
Jelani, this was a great conversation, man. I really look forward to your podcast and the greatness for 2025, and I hope you have a great time.
Hey, you too. I'm looking forward to Black Men Speak, and I'm looking forward to an eventual Black Men Speak, travel conference, or also the more collaboration.
Oh yeah, right. Oh yeah, that's a good one. Okay,
Yeah, there you
we
go. See,
definitely have
look.
to talk about that one. All
And
right,
also,
man.
yeah, but yeah,
All right.
definitely. I'm looking forward to it.